Yeah. We can wait if wanted.
What is this thing?
Okay, so you're hitting record. Cool.
I did.
Oh, we are live. What do you say, guys? Shall we start?
Yeah. If
Okay,
you just
cool.
joined and if you can keep your camera on, please do so that Manaswi can feel like he's talking to humans. If you're driving or something, of course, that's okay.
Okay, we can begin. So, wow, thanks guys for being here on Gmeet with us also. And we have done these sessions quite a few times now, so we're not gonna take up much time introducing the project as such, but maybe just a one-liner, and of course, mainly share Manaswi's introduction, who also kind of many people know, and what he's up to today. And we'll quickly hand it over to Manaswi. But just like a very brief intro for people who might see it on YouTube later, or who have not been in one of these sessions before. How-to sessions are a part of code.yatra project, which is a year-long project that some of the code drift community is spearheading. It is an intentional journey through a few cities in India, where we are trying to spread the practice of code drift, which actually started 2-3 years back as a very immersive, beginner-friendly, new creative coding practice, where we bring in the aspect of city exploration and driving our creative expression through that into our creative coding practices and live performances, both with music and visuals. So it kind of emerges as a immersive audio-visual performance at the end, which is like a nice jam, and which represents the city and the experiences within the city of the performers in a very unique way. to each of them. So through Code Yatra, we are trying to spread this practice of situatedness within creative technology, what it means to adopt things like this in the context of India, in the places that we live, in our own lives, and who can do it, how can we do it. We are challenging all of these questions and really exploring it as a personal practice, and also kind of trying to find ways how we can use creative tech and coding in very unique personal ways for different kinds of artists and makers who come from different backgrounds. So exploring hybrid practices that way. And the how-to sessions are a way for us to also, interact with people around the world we who inspire us, who are a part of our community. Creative tech, creative coding is not a very large one. Mostly everybody knows everyone. So we wanted to be in touch with people who are not in India, or maybe we are not able to touch through the Code Yatra cities, and learn from each other. So we always wanted to have Manaswi here because we are all inspired by the workflows that he comes up with the playfulness that he shares with everyone. And we're always super excited to see his performances and things in action. You all also might know him from the music tech community. He's been doing hackathons and workshops and whatnot for everybody, also a part of ADC. Some of you might have met. So we can hand it over to Manaswi from here, but maybe I'll give a formal introduction also that he has also shared with us through Instagram, and you guys might have got it in the email, but still I will share an intro. Manaswi also, of course, goes by eardrummerman. He's a Lego Papert Fellow, PhD student in the Opera of the Future Research Group, MIT Media Lab. His research explores strategies and frameworks for a new creative age of composing, performing, and learning music using AI, centered around bespoke human and cultural intent. Manaswi's research on creating novel AI lutherie, which we are, by the way, very excited about. That's a very cool name. Can be seen in the development and performance of operas like Wallis, which was an amazing sci-fi opera. We saw some glimpses of it on Instagram also. Flow Symphony, premiere at Fuel Arts Center, exhibitions across the world, Kirkland Gallery at Harvard, IFA Stuttgart, Burning Man, Boston Tech Poetics, Algorithm, many more. His work on AI music performance and copyright law has been published and exhibited in the MIT Press, Harvard Tech Review, Washington Post, Boston Globe, Conferences of Computational Creativity, ISEA Brisbane, and again, many more. He also holds an MS in Media Arts and Science, MIT, MS in Music Technology, and a BTech from India, IIT Madras. He's the founding instigator, as I said, of the music tech community in India, organizing curricula, workshops, hackathons, conferences, and community events across India. So with that, I will hand it over to Manaswi, and if Ambika wants to also share a few things, then yes.
No, I don't have nothing to share. If you're on YouTube, say hi in the chat so we know you're around. Otherwise, if you're able to keep your camera open on the meet, please do. And Manaswi, please start.
Hello, everybody. Thank you for the introduction. And I just want to say hi to everybody. And I'm very, very excited about the whole project, this entire series that's been happening. I am learning a lot from the few that have happened, the one that I'm able to attend from a distance, but I hope to be in the same room as most of you or all of you, if possible. And I will share my screen, but let me see. I can do a picture in picture so that I can see stuff. Maybe not. And let me share my screen. Sharing a tab. This is like the part where there should be some elevator music. Like a screen share music.
Yeah.
And I'm just going to open chats here so that people feel free to interrupt at any time and type a question or complain or anything like, what is this? Why did you do that? Or how did you do that? You're not telling us. So please feel free to type. And hello, if people who can type can tell me where you all are tuning in from. I'm in Houston, Texas right now, and it is early in the morning. It's like 7:30 a.m. and the sun is rising to my side. So we might slowly see more and more light coming in from here. Okay. Okay, I'm ready. So I'm gonna just go on. So first is like me to just do a sound check. I want to make sure that you all can hear audio because most of what I'll talk about is sound. So
Yeah,
can
we
you
can.
hear it?
Yeah.
Thumbs up, you can hear it. There's people from Rajasthan and Bangalore. That's cool. So already so many words were said for my introduction, so I don't think it's important for me. But I think many of the people in the audience are already my friends, so you all know me already. But for those that might not, I haven't had the chance to meet. This is a picture of me as a 4-year-old, and as you can see, I look exactly the same. That's what my parents will say. And you can see in this picture of me as a 4-year-old, I have this cassette tape recorder that my parents got me when I was very, very young. And it had like a record button, and I went around recording everything. I would record my voices, but I nobody told me what to record, so I was recording all kinds of things on it. And recently, when I was home, we found these cassette tapes. And so there are all these recordings of my voices. And a few years ago, when you could make voice models for the first time. So you could like take a small bit of recording and make an AI generated voice model. That was very intriguing to me. It was very scary also, like who gets to copy whose voice and what can be said and regulations. It was such a complex topic, but I wanted to just play with it, which is like my natural reaction to things. You might find that in my presentation as well. And so what I did was I made an AI model of my 4-year-old self from these cassette tape recordings. And so I have a message for all of you in my 4-year-old's voice. So let's hear it.
Hello, code.yatra. Thank you for listening to me.
Oh,
That
this
is
is epic. This is epic. We need this clip, please.
Of course, of course. Not only do you need this clip, you need to do this in your lives. If you all
Yes.
have recordings of yourself, it is very easy to do. Earlier, I had to like write a lot of code to make the Sobits RVC AI model. Now you can use 11 Labs or any other tool where you just have like a 1 minute of audio of any voice and you can get it. And so the things I notice when I hear it is it's my I'm singing because most of these recordings are my nursery rhymes um, and you can also hear a little bit of the quality of the audio. The cassette tape is not the best quality. This is so meaningful for me. And I think many people watching this today, maybe this is very exciting also. This is kind of like a moment in time. It's a memory. It's like looking at a photograph or something. Um, I wonder what will happen in the future when, I mean, my nephews and nieces have every moment recorded for themselves. So I'm not sure what meaning they might draw from this, but it's very important for me to listen to this and make things with it and show it to my parents. They get so emotional because they remember this voice. I don't remember this voice. For me, it's kind of a fun thing. I tried to write a song in my 4-year-old voice, and it is so hard. I just don't know what a 4-year-old should say. Maybe a 4-year-old should write that song. I might like look into that. I think I know some 4-year-olds. But but I studied in many universities, and I've kind of just been mostly seeking places where I can have fun and play and learn from those around me. And right now, I'm at MIT in the Media Lab, where I'm a PhD student, and I've been here for the last 4 years, I think, 4 or 5 years. And before that, I've also done masters in a few different places. So my background is in engineering and physics, but then I also went to music school for uh, music technology in engineering, music technology in music. And generally, like, I love music and I've been making music for most of my life, but I'm self-trained. I just found a guitar and found YouTube tutorials and started learning. This is, I think, reflective of it. Many people here are gaining skills online in so many ways. So music, for many people I talk to, is a very difficult thing, because if you were young and went to music school, it's very hard. Music education in the common way is difficult. It's like an exercise. It's a solo activity when all you want to do as a 4-year-old is like go play with your friends. But you soon realize that's what music is. You play music with friends and you improvise and you perform and you do it for people, you do it for yourself. So many reasons to make music. And listen to music, of course. So a big part of my life is music, and a big part of my life is technology as well. I have been using technologies to make things for the longest time. And the easiest thing for me was to misuse the technology, because it's very easy to like be like, what happens when I put this over here? For example, like this image that you see, if you can see my cursor, I think you can, is like a younger photograph of me that I've opened in an audio editing tool like Audacity and added audio effects to it. So this is what an image looks like when you add reverb to it or when you add auto tune to it. And it's pretty easy to do things like this where you misuse the technology, or so you don't really have to know exactly how the technology works to start being creative. You can just get a box and break it or open it. And I've been having a lot of fun with different technologies, both like digital on a screen, tools for image processing, tools for physical things. You see over here in the pandemic years, we were all locked indoors. So I did a lot of things inside the house, like these soap sculptures. These are like you speak into a microphone and this soap sculpture gets formed. And then when you stop speaking, it chops it up. And then there's a cloud of your voice in the room. Totally random. Why would anybody do that? What is the use of it? But it was so much fun to do, because it was like totally like a thing in my head. And also after doing it, I realized I spoiled so many rooms. They were all wet everywhere, and I was blamed a lot by the facilities wherever I was doing this. So some ideas don't make sense. They may not even be good ideas, but it's great to like get them out of your head and in the process, like make some friends, learn some things about the technology, about yourself. We also did some things at Burning Man. This is my incredible friends who built this structure, and I helped map that to sound. Anyway, I've been having a lot of fun with technology, music, and they already mentioned I love community, because, like I said, music is a thing which you have to do with everybody. No, it's not. Sometimes it can be a solo activity, but very often it involves listening, and it involves like other people listening as well. And so community is a big part of what I care about as well. Doing it with other people and realizing more and more that music is not just one thing. Every generation needs its own music. Every generation makes new music that other generations complain about, and again and again you reinvent music, which is like a reflection of your times. I mean, famously, the Beatles have a song called Roll Over Beethoven. And I bet like now they'll be like, what Beatles? Who is that? I mean, there are people here who don't know that. So these are like my inspirations, my like ways of how I like defining or trying to understand what I care about. But today is an opportunity for me with the code yatris and people that are not always thinking about music, but thinking about art and technology and creativity in many ways. It is an opportunity for me to share a little bit about the world I come from. And so what I would like to do is like maybe try to do some music related listening experiments. So the first thing we will do is like we'll listen. And I am interested in how we listen to music. Each of us listen differently. Our ears are unique, right? Certain sounds are so important to us. Oh, that music, that song, I remember that song. And from the culture we come from the background, music education background we have, from the genres we like, human ears are so unique. And machines, on the other hand, are also trying to understand music. Machine learning, AI, cassette tapes, everything is like listening to music. So the first thing we'll do is we will listen to some music. So if you can see the screen right now, the first listening exercise is here's some music. And for those who can read music, you can probably already know what I'm talking about, right? I think if you don't read music, then you can try to listen to it and see the shape of the notes and maybe get a sense. So I'll keep quiet for a few seconds as we try to listen to this. Maybe some people can hear it. For those who can't, is it playing? Somebody asked. It is not playing, it is only in front of us. It's kind of like text, when you read text, you hear it in your head, maybe, but the text communicates the information. And this is kind of like one way of representing music, which is the notes in front of you. And some people can listen to it, some people can't. Okay, so I won't torture the people who can't hear what this is, but we can listen to it in another form. This is a different representation. Now we have it in the form of how modern day audio workstations have notes, and they have MIDI, which is a symbolic way of representing notes, the pitch and the loudness of it. And so let's listen to it. This time there will be audio as well to listen to. Okay, you can hear like the music. Maybe some of you know the song, so it has more meaning to you than for those who don't know the song. It sounds like classical, right? You can also hear what instrument is playing it, a piano-like sound, da, 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 da. And you can see the notes kind of in this notation as well. And maybe now the notation has more meaning to you as you listen to this. Now, let's listen to it in a third way. Let's listen to it first, and then we'll talk about it. Right, that was again the same piece, but I wonder what all you could hear. I could hear it felt more emotional, whatever that could mean. It was slow. It was not like a fixed grid. Often we will differentiate that, like a fixed grid is very robotic. When people like push and pull against the notes, it feels more emotional. People that know how to play this song, I mean, I've played this song to many people, and some people say that they can feel it on their fingers because they know how to play it. So they know, they almost want to play it. And then you see over here, we are seeing two ways of representing this music. This is like the audio. So in time domain, just like how the pressure waves are vibrating at every moment in time. If it is sampled at 48 kilohertz, that means there are 48,000 samples every second, right? This is another way of listening to it, which is the spectrogram, which is the frequency content in it. Now, you can see like in all these different ways we have been listening to the same track, it has so many different meanings for us. Just the notes could have meant something. Just the symbolic thing could have meant something. The waveform, the spectrogram, they all have different meanings. And it's not just the music, even our ears are different, so it means different things. Now, why am I showing all these things? Is because it's such a social activity, listening. It depends on who you are, why you listen, how you listen, what is the medium with which you listen. And now we have all these new kinds of instruments and AI that can understand music, and it understands from representations of music. So it is important to see like what representation was the AI looking at? Was it looking at waveforms? Was it looking at spectrograms? Was it looking at symbols? Anyway, this is one of my favorite exercises, to listen and think about what information is in the thing and what information is outside the thing itself. Music is great because sometimes all of you, I bet, use ChatGPT and use all kinds of language models in your life right now. And language models are also like kind of like music. They are notes, they are words, and one word follows another word, and there is a relation between like a word and the words that came before it. Music is similar. The notes that come depend on the notes that came before it. But if you look at the audio, there are so many samples, the 48,000 samples every second. I made like an audio recording of myself saying the word 7, and then me saying the word 11, and the end of both of it is when. And it looks pretty similar. So in order to know what the word was, you have to look at like a second ago, which is 48,000 samples ago. And sometimes a chorus will happen that depends on something that happened a minute ago. And sometimes there'll be a joke in the song, which will be like, oh yeah, that's from that Sheila Ki Jawani riff. Anyway, it is very interesting that the dependencies in music can be really, really long, really like over a long period of time. Sometimes in the piece itself, sometimes outside the piece. And so what I did in my true fashion of like just playing with these tools and misusing the tools, I take some of these text to music models where you can request with text, give me a song, but I don't put any text in there and I don't put any audio in there. And from a blank, from like zeros, just by giving it zeros, I try to generate music. And sometimes it'll stay on zeros, but sometimes it'll suddenly start making music, like falling into some statistical part of the model, you know? And so these are all sounds that I've generated from silence from these AI models, hoping like, what is the machine here really? So this is going to be like kind of weird. Let's see how this sounds. It's not started playing yet, but maybe in a second.
Before was been again to Rome about BT finishes on some types most of the watering session and the internet SMS was down visual not even since supposed to I've been out with an happy on around salt lake you could imagine nothing.
that went on for like for minutes, you know. It was so crazy. It's what is this? This is kind of reflecting on the sounds that the models are trained on, the sounds that they have listened to. In some ways, for me, I'm trying to see like what the machine is hearing. And sometimes it makes this kind of things that we wouldn't hear in like our real life, which is like this cha 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 cha, like it's just going on and on. The machine doesn't have to breathe, you know, it never stops to breathe. So which is both like a limitation. If you ask like the company that makes this tool, if you show them this, they'll be like, we're so sorry, we made a mistake. There was no prompt. It was like silence and blank. By the way, it gets harder and harder to misuse these tools because they keep patching it up because they think, oh, it made a mistake. It should make the most satisfying. Whenever you ask something, it should make the most. So if I ask it rock music, what rock music? If I ask you all, think of rock music, I bet it's not going to be like the same generic thing. It could have ideas that are similar. Maybe the word rock music does not mean so much to an individual than folk music. What does that mean? So to me, like the models try to make only the statistically likely, the thing that will be the please a lot of people. But as creative people, I think all of us, whether we work with technology or whether we work with music or not, we know that the creativity is usually at the edges. You want to go away from the most average version of an idea because you're looking for your meaningful version of the idea, right? This is like, you'll understand this completely. So in some ways, doing these experiments, I'm trying to see where is the averages to find, how can I go away from it? How can I make it make mistakes? Anyway, that was like our listening experiment to just get in the sense of like music is all about us. It's all about our ears. It's all about individual ears. It's so different for everybody. And now what makes the music? Musical instruments. And most of my research, though I'll mostly stick to talking about a few different projects I've done and try to connect it to the idea of code.yatras, which is how do we use technology to do art? This is one of the key technologies, which is musical instruments. And every single thing you see on the screen right now is a technology, right? So let's see what these musical instruments are. We see violins, we see accordion. What about this one, like on the top left? Anybody know what instrument this one is? It is a flute, you're right. It is a bone flute. And maybe some of you have seen these pictures, and it's kind of contested when these bone flutes were discovered, but tens of thousands of years, Neanderthals digging caves, But we do find that there are notes in them. The notes are kind of similar to ideas we have now. Some of those ideas are based in physics. What I want you to notice is as we have new technologies, so first we had bones, we made instruments out of them. Then we have wood, we are able to carve wood. We have all these wooden instruments. Then we have metal, so we have brass instruments, all kinds of metal instruments. And then we have electronics, radio waves, World War, everything is an instrument. Of course, a lot of it is funded by different like capitalist and like military complexes, but people want to make musical instruments. People want to make music with the technologies around them. Don't ask me why. It seems we all have different reasons of why we want to make music. Some of the reasons that we find are we want to synchronize with each other. We want to communicate with each other. Most of early music has to do with synchronizing with people when you're doing work together or when you're praying together, right? If you go to a football stadium, people are chanting together. It is exciting to be part of like a bigger group that's making sound. And when you look at these different musical instruments, I notice like two things. The first thing that I want to say is no instrument is directly like trying to be a better version of a previous instrument. Like there is violin, and then there is like the iPad. And the iPad can do many things that the violin can do, but it's not necessarily, the violin is still being used. It has its own language, it has its own way of making music. So musical instruments to me are like a great way of understanding the technologies of the different times and like why we are making different things. So if we continue this line, so different technologies we make different instruments. So what are the technologies of today? Like what are the things now that will become musical instruments? One is maybe a lot of data. We have all this data being recorded, Spotify. Right now we live in a time where for $5, you have music from any point of time, anywhere in the world available to us. So we have all this data. And then we have, with these different kinds of AI models, we have ways of making patterns. So I'm very excited for the musical instruments, the technologies that will come right in front of us, right? And I'm not the first one to imagine it. So many people in our time, but not just in our time, composers from ever have been fantasizing about musical instruments of the future. Many of them will imagine this spacecraft going through the possibilities of music. And this is like a Herbie Hancock album cover. And Xenakis, who is also pretty famous in like the post-World War era of radical composers, very Western, Eurocentric ideas of music. But Xenakis was thinking about density plots and probability distributions to make music. But he's also imagining this space pilot, and Zakir Hussain is talking about how he's like exploring the whole universe through his instrument. People have been fantasizing that the future of musical instruments, when we have access to all kinds of data and sounds, will look like, oh, it'll give me all these hands. That's how I imagined it. I'll be playing like keyboards with these hands and drums with these hands. But actually what happened is it looks like this. It looks like this tiny little box. And for now, at least, AI making music is like, hey, give me a song, and it gives you a song, which really is not really feeling like the musical instrument yet. So I would like say that those musical instruments are going to come. I think 2025, 2026, more and more people will be designing these technologies as musical instruments, going back to all our different musical instrument ideas. It'll be with buttons, it'll be with knobs, it'll be with strings, it'll be with microphones, maybe with text as well. But there is this quote, which I really, really love down here, which says, writing about music is like dancing about architecture. Which I didn't understand what it is either. And I think that is kind of the point, which is that you can't really write music. How can you write the thing in your head? Most of my musical ideas are, I mean, I don't know how to say that. Maybe I can say a fast phrase with these notes. Maybe I can put it on like a score, but it still is limiting. We did that first listening experience to kind of get a sense of like, there's so much information in our heads, in our minds, when we think about music. So I think like this is what like the title was of what I was going to talk about, which was, if you could talk to a song, how do we talk to songs? And I think maybe many people here work with music, but if you don't, I want to kind of present to you this idea that we do talk to language models now. And when we talk to language models, we don't just say, give me story. We do many things. We talk to it, we debate it, we get information from it. We use it for thinking, brainstorming. I mean, hey, I think today there must have been 20 startup companies that are imagining new ways of using language models for thinking, right? We have these new thinking tools, note-taking tools. Similarly, if we were to use that same idea for music, I would say if I could talk to music, or if I could talk to like this sound making machine, or if I could talk to a song, what would I ask it? And I have a few ideas. I would say, what instruments? How do I play this song? How do I play it on the piano? I don't know how to play piano. Can you teach me how to play this on the piano? That's kind of like how we're using these language models. What if you play this song, but in my voice? When is this music from? Maybe it helps us learn a little bit more about music. So it seems like just making the song is just like the most basic version of the musical instrument right now. It can just copy things. And then I want to say, like, it's not just one song. It can be like a collection of sounds, an archive, sounds that have meaning for a particular group of people, a particular type of sound, a particular type of instrument. So you could talk to, let's say, your piano and be like, how do I play these sounds? How do I play that sounds? What did I do wrong in this performance? And then it's not just talking, right? It's like performing, learning from, improvising with. And what I want to say is, like, right now, a lot of instruments that are being designed are usually being designed to make more of the song, more of like the instrument, a new genre. We want something new. We want to make the thing, because many people are obsessed with the thing itself. Can we make a lot of this thing? Oh, if we make it personalized, then everybody will have their version of thing, and then they can pay us a subscription fees for thing, and then it'll become democratized, and everybody will have thing. But so far, I think I've convinced you all that it's not so much about the thing, really, especially with music. It's very much about the actions, the relation that you have with thing, how you make the thing. And so more about like the performing, the learning, the improvising, which are all the verbs, not the nouns that are associated with making music. So in all of the work that I'm doing, both in my PhD as well as my art practice, all of the focus is on these verb forms. What is like the action around the thing? And so even when you collect pieces of sounds, you make like small collections of sounds or assets. I would think a lot about why I collected these sounds. How do I distribute these sounds? What happens when I give it to somebody? And stick with the verb forms of things. A good exercise for me is like when I'm doing a project, I'll write down all the verbs that are associated with the thing I'm trying to do. Is this going to make someone think? What are they going to be thinking about? When you write down those verbs, it gives you a sense of what is the activity that you're trying to do. Okay, I think I said like how to talk to songs was like title, which I promised, but I don't think I really know how to talk to songs. So what I'll do is I'll tell you how I interact and talk to these songs in different projects that I've done. And feel free to ask some questions, or at the end we can like discuss some ideas about this. If any thought comes to your mind, please feel free to type it anywhere in the chats. But here are the ways I'm trying to organize how I talk to the musical data set or the song that I'm dealing with. And usually I've divided into these three categories, as you can see on the screen. The first on the left is like the instance level or note level, which means I want to talk or be in control of every single note or every single instant of the music. Kind of like a piano. You press a button, it plays a note. It doesn't play like longer than a note. It plays, and the piano is also like, it has a bunch of buttons. Those buttons are mapped to certain sounds, right? There is a physical interaction that makes the piano sound, but an electronic piano, it has like memory. So each instance, I press the buttons and play the notes. Total control, total agency. That's like on this left. In the middle is like at a phrase level, where you want to like capture a musical idea that's not an entire song, but like a tiny phrase that you can react to, that you can speak to, kind of like your chat GPT, where you say a thing, then it says a thing. You're taking turns. It doesn't have to be taking turns. It could also be many talking at once, like in a choir when everybody's singing the same phrase at once. So phrase is another way, slightly less like agency. You might do a phrase, then the other or the instrument does a phrase. Imagine like you have loops and longer segments of samples that you have collected. People will play musical instruments like Fred again will play like longer samples. He'll press buttons and each button will trigger like a longer chunk of samples. You can overlap those phrases. You can take turns with the phrases. Many composition ideas of how to take phrases and put them together, like Lego pieces almost, next to each other, on top of each other, overlapping with each other. It is like constructing with sound in many ways. And then the third thing, which is like very less agency, is kind of at a very structural level where you say, give me song, or give me a chorus, give me a verse. So far, I kind of complained about this give me a song thing, but we have so many exciting tools in 2025 right now, where because a lot of attention is being focused on the structural level. I mean, I think it's a lot of computer scientists, engineers, and MBA and investors that are thinking about or have the resources to build these tools. So no wonder they're thinking in the structural level. I wish many of them went to music school, then they could think about all these different levels. But what I will do is I will show you like one by one, like a case study of some projects that I've done and talk through like each of these levels, the tools that I used, what I was thinking of when we built the thing. So starting from like the structural level, I think is most exciting for me, which is the tool that everybody has access to. Now, maybe some of you have already been using Suno, or there are others like Suno, UDO, Refusion. You request a thing, it gives you a song. Now, the first thing I did when I got access to it was, can I hum a melody and then make my melody into a whole song? And you can do that because you can upload a tiny bit of audio and then generate whole song. So maybe like almost 2 years ago when Suno just started, I made this particular thing. I'm going to stop sharing and reshare so that I can share a different tab. So don't be worried if you see me in a bigger version. So I'm going to come.
As the elevator music.
La la da la da da da. Dun, da, 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 da. Sorry. I wish this elevator music was personalized. And okay, here it is. So look at this one now. So here is my version of it. So I will hum a melody. This is the melody that I hummed. Let's see. I'm just going to refresh this. Okay. Ooh, 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 ooh. Ooh, 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 ooh. Okay, now I hum that melody, and now I get a whole radio of music in many different genres, all related to that melody. So let's listen to some different songs. You can hear that melody, it's there everywhere. Look at these words. I didn't say a word. What? So that was like pretty exciting to do, pretty easy to do. And what I realized was like when I did it, the first thing when I showed it to people, I don't know how you all feel about it, but when I showed it to people, the first thing that everybody said was I want to try it. Like I want to try it, right? Like because it's not important that I did the funny thing. That sounds like Mario Kart. Nice. So it is like you want to make your version of it too, because it's so easy to do. It feels like this is what you see usually when you see AI art anywhere. Usually you see, I used to see a lot of people like in the comment section all be like, what was the prompt? What was the prompt? Right? Like what, because you want to try it yourself. It's so easy to do. So what happened was when I did this thing, I had to make it like so that other people could experience. It was obvious to me this is valuable only to me. It's not valuable to like anybody else for now, because they're seeking their own version of it. It's so easy to do. The value is kind of shifted away from the amazingness of the song to to somewhere else. And so I made like many installation versions of this. So people could come in, they could like hum a melody, turn some knobs, and listen to different versions of their thing. And what was very important to me was to do this in person, because I realized that there was so much debate and discussion about copyright, and I was involved in a lot of it too, was who owns the copyright of the sounds that's coming out, because it is trained on music. So the voice that you hear is somebody's voice, or is like a statistical average of many voices, but those are all scraped, and the countries don't have good laws about them yet, or how to distribute economically, how to distribute to data sets. So I always did it in person. I always did it in a room full of people, and never gave anybody their sounds, that it's all thrown away. It was kind of like eating popcorn. You enjoy eating popcorn. It is done in a meaningful way. It's not for the nutrition of it. And so while many people argue about like, oh, I made this song, I'll put it on Spotify, I'm going to become like AI musician on Spotify. There's so many debates about it, right? We actually have like AI music artists now infiltrating other genres as well, not just lo-fi, which by the way has been happening for many years, but now it's in every genre. To me, what was most meaningful was in the space, like interacting with people. Because it was so much fun when people could be with each other, react to each other's prompts, and really have fun doing it. And it was a different kind of like creativity. And so even at a structural level, I felt like there was a lot of verbs that I was hitting on when I was trying some of this work out. Then I'm going to shift gears and talk about like a very different kind of music. So we recently did this work at the Dallas Symphony Orchestra. And the DSO, which is the Dallas Symphony Orchestra, is in Dallas, Texas. And they have this beautiful building, this crazy looking sharp thing. And they have a lot of programs for youth. So children will come and middle schoolers will come. And we built like a whole museum for them in there, where they can learn how instruments work. What is inside a guitar? What is inside a piano? How does synthesizers work? And I got access to the archives of the Dallas Symphony. And so if you go to the Dallas Symphony Orchestra building now, or I think later this year, you can go interact with the archives of the museum. And the way you interact with the archives is kind of similar, where you turn some knobs, like a radio, pass through the different composers, mix ideas together. Maybe a little interesting, a different kind of structural interaction, more pedagogical, I think. When I have videos from children using it, I will share it with all of you. And then a third kind of thing, which is not popular music, not orchestral music, but music that's very meaningful to like a smaller community. And so we did this project with my collaborator, Nicole, who's amazing. And Nicole was working with these Andes moche culture. And in the Andes mountains, they have these instruments. So you see these pots and pans that are hanging here. Those pots and pans have been sitting in like the museums in Stuttgart. And they've never been played, they've never been recorded. I mean, it'll surprise you. Recording technology has only been around for like 100 years, you know, it's like in the 1920s or something. So it's not that the music is way older than that. There are so many instruments that have never been recorded, and they're kind of dying. So this instrument, the only place you can find these instruments is in these colonial museums now. So they've never been recorded. These museums can't be touched because these instruments can't be touched because they are fragile. They're the only ones of their type. So the museum let like Nicole and our other collaborators like blow air into these and kind of make recordings of how these instruments might have sounded when people were playing them. And what we did was we took this, made like a small data set of just this instrument sound. And in the IFA in Stuttgart, we ran it for like 4 or 5 months, where people could interact and listen to the sound of this instrument. They could make their own versions of the sounds. The data set would keep building. In some ways, the AI model itself was like the art piece. People would interact with the piece itself. Now, as I show this to you, I want to say like you can be very intentional about the sounds you collect, the data set that you work with. Yeah, so, okay, we're done with like the structural level of making music. I'm going to talk about now the complete opposite end, which is the instance level. So every movement you want to control, every movement you want to, now, we did talk about this. I'm going to play a clip from this sci-fi opera that we did called Valis. And Valis is one of Philip K. Dick, who's a science fiction writer, his like last thing he wrote. It's kind of nutty, like he goes crazy in the story. It's kind of self-reflective. He's kind of gone mad. And there is a part of the piece, and Todd Macover, that's a picture of my professor. He's a composer, and he has the rights to do an opera of this piece. They did an opera of this in the 80s for the first time. And in 2023, I think we redid this opera a second time. And in the opera, there is this musician from the future. that is communicating knowledge through a futuristic musical instrument. So we built this instrument, and I'm going to like play a clip from it. So just if you can see in this screen here, you see somebody standing here. You see they're standing, they're holding a thing in their hand, which is like a peanut butter jar, actually. And they're going to move it around in space. And what you're going to hear is all AI generated music for the science fiction show being generated as they're moving around in space. I'm just going to pause it here. Kind of sounds weird, kind of sounds. So it's made from all these science fiction sounds. Actually, it is made from all the sounds from the 1980s version of the opera. So we have like 1 hour of that opera sounds. And now what is happening when she's moving around in space? If you all know the instrument called theremin, you know the theremin, which is like you move your hand in space next to an antenna. The closer you get 2 signals from the theremin, 2 analog signals, and you can map them to pitch and loudness. It's very hard to play because if you're just moving in space, you cannot really go back to the same point. I don't know if you've ever tried it, but thermins are very hard. This is kind of like a super high dimensional theremin. It's like 9 dimensions. This object has an IMU sensor in it. So it has 3 dimensions of position, tilt, acceleration. So 3, 3, 3, 9 dimensions. And those 9 dimensions are being used to sample from one of these AI models. So it's trained on all these science fiction sounds. Now, when she's in a particular position, it starts making sounds. And when she tilts it or moves it even a little bit, it starts changing the sound that you hear because the latent space, like kind of, it changes the variables in the latent space. We particularly use a model called Rave in this, which I encourage you all to check out. It's gotten so much better now, so easy to use. This was back when Rave had just come out, so we were very excited to use it. Now, 2 things I want you to notice is when you can change a number from 0 to 100, because you're making an instrument out of it, you can do many things, right? You can map it to like a hand position. And I see a lot of like Instagram reels now of like hand connected to like Touch Designer, or so you have hand position mapping to a number, or you could have a knob, or you could have a slider, and you might just think that these are all just different ways, but they're not all equivalent ways. They're all very different from each other, right? Because the speed at which you can turn a knob is very different from the speed at which you can move your hand. And the 9 dimensions of movement are all not, the 9 dimensions of movement are not all independent of each other. They're not line independent. You cannot like increase one and decrease the other because they're all tied in together. You're moving your wrist, you're moving your hand. What that ends up meaning is every degree of freedom that you choose has some dimensions, some constraints of the speed, of the acceleration in which you can move it. Yeah, body track, Chasan is mentioning body track as a media pipe. Every time you do a body project where you map like wrists and hand movements, you know that this hand cannot move more than a body length away from this hand, you know? So there are limitations that you're directly putting in, but limitations are great because then it allows you to build a language around that vocabulary. So what we ended up doing in this case was she could move her hand in a certain way. We ended up finding certain wrist motions that she was able to do consistently and was having fun doing it. And the audience could also see that she was moving her hand. And so you end up building like a vocabulary from the movements that one can do. And another thing that we had was when you have a thing that you cannot repeat, a musician wants to be able to repeat an action, right? Because repetition is what music is based on. And so it became very important in such non-deterministic algorithms or methods where you roll a dice or something. When you find a good idea, you want to save that idea, right? You want to be able to revisit that idea. When you make mistakes, you find a good mistake, you want to visit that mistake again. So many tools will not let you do that, but if you can add that layer on top where you save that moment. So in this, what we have done is you can see on the box, there are these like triangular silver patches that you see. So she could touch the side silver patches to save a moment in time. And then she could repeat that particular sound, or that particular motion again, just by like touching those sides. These were like some of the learnings I think that I wanted to share from this particular like instance-based control of things. And then here's another one, which is the Flow Symphony, which we did most recently. I'm very excited about this one because you see this is like a chamber orchestra. These are the best musicians of the world because this is the Sejong soloists. And the Sejong soloists are in Korea. This is the premiere of the show in Seoul. And what I had these musicians do is they are improvising and they're playing. I'm going to stop and reshare and share another tab because I have like the unreleased video from this that I will show all of you.
But we are streaming. Is that okay for you?
Yes, 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 absolutely. I'll play like a clip from it. Thank you for checking with me. Here it is. Now, over here you see the musicians are sitting. What they're going to do now is they're going to start play. They're going to play, and it's like a long piece. The entire piece is inspired by a river. And so our professor went and recorded a particular river. He got like 1 or 2 hours of recordings of a river. And we made an AI model out of the river. Now, these musicians can play. Whatever they play will get in real time translated into the sound of a river. Now, what does that mean? We must listen to it, of course, as everything music. And then we can talk about it. So in the beginning, I think everybody's going to play. And soon one of them is going to play at a time. And you can listen for the sounds of the river. I'm just going to pause it there. I think you could, maybe if you had headphones, you can hear it slightly better, the water sounds that you hear as they're playing. Now, I want to point out like two things in this project. One is, of course, look at this guy, look how happy he is. He just made the AI do certain fun things. I love that. And everybody was so focused in listening, like what is going to come out. Because these musicians are amazing. They are like the best at their craft. So they have like two things that they can do. One is they are very good with their fingers, right? They have expert way of like expressing ideas on their instrument. And another is they have like really good like understanding of what idea to catch, how to improvise, because they have the understanding of the language of music, of their instrument. And it is great to like, rather than give them a text prompt or something, to build on top of what they can already do, correct? And we could like put another band on their wrist or something and say, if you move this hand, then something will happen to the music. But that's again, like giving them a really bad thing that they're not used to playing with. While on their instrument, they're already so good. So in some ways, we are going from audio to audio in this project, but actually they are just going from their bowing, like their articulation to the audio. So when they're trying to change something about the sound, they're trying to change the way they play it. They're not thinking about the audio, they're thinking about the way they perform it, which is so exciting, by the way, for me. And another thing is like, because the sound worlds of the chamber orchestra is so different from the sound of the river, it's obvious to everybody that this river is something weird and different, and I should pay attention to it. Versus if there was like the sound of a violin playing when they played also, it would kind of clash. The audience won't be able to tell which gesture is being made by the musician, which gesture is coming from elsewhere. And I don't know if you all noticed, but I'm sitting on the stage as well. I'm sitting like back here. That's me. Look, I'm sitting here and I'm getting the microphones from everybody. Look, that's my black and white hair back there. And I'm getting like the microphones from everybody. And kind of like when you get into like a classical music context, it's not just about like improvising. There are parts of the music that are written down in the score. The conductor is telling me when to like turn certain things on, turn certain things off, when to make the water more splashy and more underwatery and things like that. Okay, I'm gonna go back to sharing the presentation. Does anybody have any questions or?
Is it like live coding with the conductor?
It is, absolutely it is. So in front of me, I have like a Max MSP patch. So I am like connecting and disconnecting graph nodes when I'm doing it. But I'm not like typing lines of code, but I am like reacting to like the instructions I'm given. And because the model will, the water will not do anything if no sound comes in. So I kind of have to be prepared. Like if they make a sound, is it creating a sound? Is it loud enough? I need to like change it. So I'm live coding, but with assets that are being made in front of me live. Uh,
And they each have like a mic, or it's like a...
Yeah, in this case, like there are sections. So the way chamber orchestra is divided, there's like a violin one section, violin two section, bass, cello, and each section has like a microphone pointed in their direction. You can't see the mics. They're all like very good audio people. This is happening in Seoul Arts Center. So there are about 2,000 people in the audience,
Oh, amazing.
which is great too. It's great to be able to do this kind of weird experimental work. I mean, we do the same kind of work in a basement and in opera houses. It's the same, guys. It's just different funding. But when you have a lot of people be reacting to it, then it gives you a sense of which ideas are working, which ideas are not working, what makes sense to people. In the classic like live coding manifesto, like the top lap manifesto, there is one of the points which is like show your screens, and the idea being like you don't want in order to like close the loop of the audience understanding your gesture to the result, you really need to show people, and they don't need to understand your programming language. So the way I think it's happening here, though you don't see my screen here, is because the sound worlds are so different, and it's obvious for people right now what's happening. While in the other one, the previous one, there was an object that she was moving around. That was so important. If there was no object, people would be guessing which part of the hand, what is the hand mapped to, what is the leg mapped to. Now everybody was looking at the object. They knew something with the, and then of course they're still guessing. They don't know exactly what movement in the thing is mapping to the sounds. But the live coding ideas are there in all of this work.
So this performance, Manaswi, was it practiced or did you all just do it on the stage?
That's a very good. It is so important to have some rehearsal time because this is kind of like where there is a little bit of less agency with the musicians. And musicians are kind of don't find it so easy to like jump into, especially if you're good musicians who really want to do a good job. You really understand your instrument, so you don't want to be thrown into a place. So there was rehearsal time. And in rehearsal time, which is very, very important, what we did was we let every musician kind of explore the space a little bit. Kate Compton in her like PhD thesis talks about these grok loops and expectation space. What she's talking, like the thing to take away is that when a musician is using a tool, or when anybody's using a tool, which is non-deterministic, what you're doing is you're doing a gesture and you're building a mental map. Okay, that gesture did that thing. Now, what if I do another gesture? Let me repeat that gesture so that at least in my mental model, I can be sure every time I do this thing that the other thing happens. So you want to like slowly, there is a model of how the actual mapping is done, but there's a separate model of how you are preparing your expectation space. And so in this case, even though they have some rehearsal time and they have some expectation space, so they know like, I think these ideas are good ideas, but because it's not always the same, which is the nature of these models, it is still like they're trying to catch a good idea. And it still feels like surfing or like a live code risk is there in some of
Yeah, that's why this seems so unique, because generally orchestras and symphonies are so like everything is written, and here you can see that they might have explored, there might be some rehearsal, but all they would know is how the AI music is going to react. But actually there is a lot of improvisation here. It's not entirely practiced as the symphony is.
Absolutely. And I appreciate these musicians so much because every like musical culture has different levels of like improvisation abilities and things like that.
Yeah.
And then of course I want to do this for Indian music because I do build all these things, but my ears are listening to a certain kind of music and I want to experiment with the kinds of music I'm familiar with. So here I have example of something we did like a month ago for the International Computer Music Conference, which is a conference that happens where people who work with technology and music present work. And here we presented our like Indian classical performance. So you see me over here on the left with a microphone, and here's my friend Mansoor, who is a sitar player. He's 7th generation sitarist, so he's been playing sitar for like his 7 generations have been playing sitar. I think his particular gharana is contributed to defining the sitar, adding a few strings in the sitar, which is what Ravi Shankar then accepted. I think Mansoor can explain it much better than I am, but we really wanted to do like a jugalbandi. So we did this AI jugalbandi where there are moments where we're using phrases to generate new phrases and moments when we're doing instance level control, but using like cultural paradigms of musical performance. Like jugalbandi is already well defined and it has certain ideas of trading fours, like in jazz music or something, where you do like one thing at a time. So I'm going to play some parts of this performance. So let me see, we could go to some part here. So what you'll hear here is I'm kind of making percussion sounds from my microphone. So I'm beatboxing. I'm just going boom, 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 boom. And my voice is getting converted into the sounds of percussions while improvising with Mansoor on the sitar. And we're like trading like a jugalbandi. I'll pause it, but we go through like many different rhythmic cycles. I noticed like it was important for people to be able to hear my voice also, to be able to know like what sounds were coming from real time, what are not. And then I'll show you another moment of the piece. So here's a moment of the piece where Mansoor plays a riff and I record like a piece of the riff and it's composed already. So we have the riff that we know we're going to play, like kind of like our chamber orchestra musicians. It's like there is some parts of the score and I'm going to synthesize Indian style voices from that phrase. And this is kind of like a phrase level of making music. Look, you already hear it. The first thing we did was he's playing this riff, and then this riff is what conditions the voices. And so what I did was like I got that sitar playing and I got multiple voices. I made like a bunch of voices and then I was like just live coding the amount of each voice, how many voices from this prompt, how many voices from the female prompt, kind of like live coding, but in the context of Indian music, I guess. This Jugalbandi was also very exciting. Anybody has any like thoughts or questions? It was great to be able to do this in the computer music conference because the computer music conference is full of like ideas like this, but they don't usually have Indian music in their context. So it would be so great to do this in India, right? The computer music conference in India, where we could represent so many types of music. As we already saw, like right in the beginning, it's not just like one instrument or one story to be told.
Okay. Are you at the end of it or?
Yes, I have like one example left.
Samira has a question on this.
Sorry?
How did you do the, Samira has a question in the chat.
Yeah, how did I do the prompts?
Set it up.
How did I do the prompts and how did I set it up? So there are many parts of this performance and I can break it down in like a thing. I showed two things. One was like the percussion jugalbandi with the sitar playing. That was pretty simple. That was like real time, max MSP. There was not any text prompts. It was not using any big models. It was all small autoencoder models. But this particular part was these big models. So I have these models that I'm running. I have the prompts already set up. I'm not typing any prompts in real time. I already saw which prompts work. So what I'm doing is I'm just using the assets to mix the assets, like generate the assets live from the prompts. And so behind my computer screen here, I am running like many things. I am writing Python files and some JavaScript code. And what I did for this one was show on the screen, like on the screen behind me, just like every time the sitar would play something, I would have like a gesture there. And every time like the AI would make a thing, I had like a separate color and gesture to show it. I'm not exactly sure what the right way of showing when AI is taking its role is, but it's very important to have some sense so that people can point to like this part is happening with AI. People like George Lewis, who did the Voyager work like a couple of decades ago, he was making AI music as well. That was just not using the same kind of AI we are talking about. But what he would do is he would have a piano on stage. And then every time the machine had to generate a piece, it would come out from that piano. So people would know to look at, oh yeah, the machine generated stuff is coming from that object. Similarly, like Hatsune Miku, if you know, the Japanese pop star, who is basically a singing voice synthesizer, is like a holographic figure that comes on stage. So everybody knows to look at like that object as the one that makes music. Okay, Satyarth is asking on the YouTube stream, how far do we think we are from Jugalbandi that can fit the structure of an Indian classical performance? That is, detect that a sitar player is starting a tihai and catch it to land on the first beat. This is such an exciting thing to do right now. I would say all the examples I've shown are like fragments, very simple ideas, correct? They're not at the sophistication at like classical music. And I would think of it like two different approaches. The engineering mindset of mine would be how do we solve that? How do we get better? So can we generate data sets of classical performances with those things labeled and so that it can learn structural ideas? Right now, for example, Suno is trained on all this music. It knows ideas about verse and chorus and when chorus and verse repeat. Why doesn't it know? If you try to make Indian music on it, it will make something like a tihai, but it will not be inspiring. It will not, because it does not have enough examples of variations. Does that mean we cannot do it? Of course we can. We have so much amazing Indian music everywhere. So much of it is on YouTube and recorded too. So I think it is possible to do it like as an engineer on how to get closer to getting the structural sophistication of complex semantics of different cultures, not just Indian music. And then the artistic hat, if I wear like the non-engineering hat and be like, how would I do it? I think there is a big role that the human who is playing the AI instrument can play. So for example, here I was doing things where I was playing percussion with the sitar player, and there is a lag that I have. So what I can do is I can decide how much extra lag I want to add so that it falls on the one next time. If we play to a click track or if we play to a tempo, then we don't even need to do it ourselves. We can programmatically do it where we know that we want to put it on the next click track one. But if I'm doing it with like a knob, it's kind of like DJing where I'm beat matching. But if there is latency, you can add to the latency to fall on the next one. That's like one technique. And there are many other techniques that we discovered like this, which is where the human that is kind of performing with the AI as an instrument. So I want to kind of through all of this point out like the engineering goals are kind of making the instruments that can do more than what they can do currently. But the artists always want to take that technology and use it in some way. Like I want to participate, I think. I don't know if that like kind of answers the question, but this is a great thing to like discuss. How do we get closer to these ideas of Indian music? Like you mentioned tihai. I know you're like a tabla player and you're thinking about that a lot. People who we show like we've been doing like rag condition generation. So you type in like a rag name and it will generate vocals in the style of a particular rag. We've been doing that. And when we evaluate with experts, they have so many things to point out, like this is correct, this is wrong. So the engineers would like try to make it better, but the artists, I think we can already start using it. And maybe in simpler ways than like imagining that the AI is like another player that you're playing with, but rather think of it more like what is a smaller role it can play, I guess. If you have any particular ideas, we can try. Okay, this is like the last example that I want to show because I've been like talking about so many things. I don't know if it makes sense, but here is like another example of this phrase level music making, which is it's very exciting time because there are a few open source models for music now. These open source models have come from Stable Audio. Stable Audio from Stability AI made a model. It's trained on free sounds that are Creative Commons license. So there is license for the sounds that it can generate, but they are big models. So we can write text and generate music. And another type of open source model that just came out was from Lyria and Magenta team. Magenta put out like a Magenta real time. So they have released the weights of this model. To me, this feels like the moment when stable diffusion models were released for the first time. You know, there were new marketplaces, Civet AI, people were making their fine-tuned versions, distributing it. We're kind of like in that moment for music, though it's much more trickier with music because music is all controlled by labels. It's a complex thing on who owns the assets of music. Another discussion, I think. But because we have these open weights right now, we can do many exciting things that we couldn't do before. I was hacking Suno and things to try to get it to make music, but now we have these models that we can actually use. So here is an example of the Magenta real time. So the way the real time works is it's very similar to all of the text to music things, but what it does, it looks at the last 10 seconds of audio to generate the next 2 seconds of audio. And it's doing that continuously. It's continuously looking at the last 10 seconds and generating 2 seconds. Now, what does that mean? That means that you cannot get ideas that are consistent or like are repeating a phrase that happened more than 10 seconds ago, correct? It still feels like a loop-based thing. But because it depends on 10 seconds overlapping, it kind of stays consistent because the last 10 seconds depend on, like the next 5 seconds are still related to the previous 10 seconds. So it's always like, because it's windowed, it kind of makes the same kind of music. Now, this is all released in JavaScript. So y'all can like make your own interfaces, interactions on this JavaScript. And I'll show one that I made. I totally like vibe coded this, where the way I did it was I went to Google Slides and I made this UI interface. I said, I want to type a text prompt here. I want a drop-down menu here for genre names, for instrument names. Slowly, I added different functionalities here. And behind the scenes, it's running the Magenta real time. And as you type things, it constantly keeps making music. But if you can't see, I'll like read it out because I didn't really think about if people can see. So I wrote like ambient, slow drones. Then I say arpeggios. I say drum and bass and bagpipes. And now with this knob, I'm kind of increasing the density of notes that can occur. Okay, I'll just point out to what is happening on the screen. These knobs are like temperature of the model, so how surprising the results are. This is like density of the notes. This is the key of the song, so I can change the key of the song if I want. These are extra things that I added, kind of like the DJ world, which is filter and reverb, so I can add a filter, reverb on top of it and cut off like a part of the music, kind of like prompt jockeying, right? But this is my interface for prompt jockeying. And maybe I'll show you like one idea that I tried was I create like a prompt sequencer. And so I have 2 prompts, like this prompt that says huge drop transition. That's one prompt. And another prompt that is tabla amen breaks. If you know, amen breaks are like a right? And tabla, what is tabla amen breaks? I don't know. And then what we do here is I kind of, if you know, like different, I already talked about how different musical instruments have completely different language and way of thinking. So if you think of these prompts as just a DJ, then you will only think of like constantly typing prompts and mixing them together. But if you think of like a musician that plays modular synthesizers, you will think of having this module and that module and oscillating this module by that module, if you're familiar with that. So what I have here is these 2 prompts are oscillating at different speeds. And so you have one prompt and another prompt kind of taking turns. Crazy fun. I actually have it here. I can make music also if you all want to contribute
Also
some
love the
prompts.
tabla amen. It's such a good idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love it too. I think that was just me. I think if we all use it, we'll come up with so many crazy. Like for example, oh my God, I must share this knowledge here. Anywhere where you can type text prompts, please put emojis there, right? And in Suno, if you put like certain prompts, fire emoji, water emoji, they're always making like certain similar kinds of sounds. And I guess that maybe my prompts are getting cached somewhere. And so every time I type fire emoji, maybe it generates the same thing. But but it is very exciting to like break the system where you can put silences or semicolons. Wait, actually, we should try it. Anybody have any prompt ideas you want to try? If you give me like a few prompt examples, I will try it right now. Should we want to do it or not?
Yeah. You again have an idea? He was liking that last one. He came and whispered in my ear. Oh, did Manaswi leave accidentally? Oh no, he's here. Yeah.
Came back. Sorry, I refreshed the wrong tab, but I'm here.
Oh, he did it again. Wait.
Okay, now you can pin me. I'm here for good.
Yeah. I'm gonna try and change the view a little bit so everyone's visible now, hopefully, whoever's around. And if you want to show your faces again to Manaswi and give him your beautiful broad smile.
Well, I see everybody, and you can see I have like this prompt thing running here. So anybody have any prompt ideas? Let me get the chat here. Or I can just feel free to go.
Baby cribbing.
Baby cribbing. I don't know what will happen. This is trained only on like music, so it might still try to make music and not make babies crying.
Rain sounds falling on the
Underwater saxophone. Oh, I like that. Okay, now we'll hear underwater saxophone in 2 seconds. Carnatic Midwest. Emo. This is Carnatic Midwest. Emo. I guess it latched on the emo. I'm very curious if it actually does generate Carnatic. So I'm just going to say Carnatic. Let's see. Oh, it has it. It has it. Sponge flute. And we should have just done this for an hour. Muffled construction sound. In a second.
Oh, this is really working.
Mongolian roasting in Drupal style.
Very good.
Okay, but I will stop now. This is very, very exciting, but I think we have already taken so much time that please join me in the session. And maybe it's great fun to do this with a lot of people. I'm going to save this out.
That was amazing.
It was fun. We need to make this for ourselves.
Well, I made it, so I'll give it to you all.
Yes, please.
But that's it. So I just wanted to share many of these ideas in the context of making your technologies and trying to be creative with it. And maybe if you have like collections of sounds, then you can think about them at like an instance level, at a phrase level. But I'm happy to talk with anybody who has an idea. And I see there are ideas that people are typing, more prompts. And Koparzi has a question. What places should we look for training our own models with custom data? So, okay, so I will quickly answer this because I think this is like the thing that every artist wants to do is train on their own data sets, on their own models. So there are AI models that are like smaller models that you can train, of course, like Rave. There are not just Rave, there's VampNet. There are like 3 or 4 different kinds of autoencoder style models that require maybe about 1 hour of audio. So if you have 1 hour of audio, you can train this model. But these models only understand audio. So they can only generate new audio. Conditioned on another audio, if they are transformer models, if they're encoders, then you give an audio, it encodes and decodes the audio that you give it, but you cannot interact with it with text. If you want text, you want slightly larger models, models that are trained with embedding spaces that have both text and audio. And now we can do it now. So there is Stable Audio has like a tutorial for how to fine tune the open source model that they have. But also the example that I just showed, Magenta Real Time, which has come out in open source, is going to have like a fine-tuning collab notebook that I'm working with some of the people at Google, and they showed me some of these collab notebooks. And I think in like a few weeks or so, I think they plan to release these fine-tuned models as well. So we can fine-tune something that's conditioned on text. So we have to generate 1 hour, we have to get 1 hour of our own audios, but also get like some texts for each of those audio files. Those texts could be just descriptions of them. They could be more meaningful texts, and we can fine tune these models. And I think maybe marketplace examples will start coming out where people share these fine tuned music models and checkpoints somehow. Ambika, you were saying something, I think.
Oh, sorry. Is it okay to ask a question?
Yes, please, please.
So, my understanding of music is very limited, but I think today was very nice to understand like this idea of gesturing and like what that means for musicians. And not only is my understanding of music very limited, my understanding of performance is really limited. My 2 closest collaborators are both performers, but still this seems to be the case, unfortunately, with me. But so I wanted to understand what could that mean in context of like for us as code.yatris and as like people looking at these ideas and meanings of what it means to have like live coded performances which are like situated, you know, within our own kind of cultural context. Like, I mean, I don't know what you'll answer, but I'm just like opening it out to you as a thought because you gave me this idea of what it means to gesture. So
yes, okay. So I think that is so helpful to imagine, and I think you all will individually imagine what that means. I'll give you some pointers. So in the examples I showed now if you have a collection of sounds, a collection of ideas, they could be small sounds, kind of like small things that can happen like events, or they could be longer phase like sounds. And like I said, a lot of music is just constructing with the sound. So you can just repeat it. If you repeat it at an equal pace, it's fine. Now, most of examples, what I showed were the liveness of music. And like you said, gesturing. So how do I perform the sounds? Once I have the sounds, how can I perform it? A composer thinks slightly differently. I have a lot of like composition projects too. And there are many ideas of composition in the West, in India, and of how things should repeat, what ideas should stay the same, what ideas should change. But as far as like gesturing is concerned, I think in code.yatris for it, now you have this collection of sounds, this collection of ideas, you want to perform it with a gesture, you want to situate it in where you are. So I was saying, for example, if you have like an IMU sensor that can move, that has positions, you can put it in many different places. You can put it in humans, you can put it in objects, you can move the objects around. These objects, the choice of the objects and what is the action that you do should come from like the places that you are in. For example, there are games where you pass objects around. There are games where you move in a certain way. There are dance forms. There are movement practices where you move slow, fast. Everybody goes together. Everybody goes separately. You can map these ideas of gestures to the performance in a few ways that I showed. So when you map gestures to the performance, you can map them at every instance, at every phrase, at like a structural level. You can imagine like if the performance is meant for an expert gesture performer to do, or like a non-expert to do. I showed examples of like where the experts, it makes sense to use the rich entropy of expression that an expert has, rather than like make it simpler for them and say, hey, expert musician, here are your 2 buttons. But it would be great if like you say, you do your thing in the way that you do it, and we will try to build like languages around it. So if you have images, you can try to get gestures through like the Wakinator. If you have like a sensor or something, you can put it in a particular part of their body or something, so it captures on top of like their expert movement or gesture already. If it is a musician that's playing an instrument, then some of the examples I showed, audio to audio, I thought it's best to embed them in the musician's practice. Like if the musician has ideas of Jugalbandi, we kind of saw on how to trade ideas in the context of Jugalbandi. If the musicians don't have ideas like that, but they have other ideas where they say, structure is like this big, so let me do my thing for this much time, and then we do a different thing after that. So if it's an expert, it helps to rely on their intuitions, their languages, their expression. If it's an amateur, then you want to make sure the things that are happening somehow make visual sense as well through objects or screens, and give them like knobs and things like that. I think these are just like general directions to tangentially like move. And I think because you all are like creatively working with a particular data set, we also talked about the data set collection, right? Which I think has been a big part of the practice already, which is what sounds to collect, how to collect them, how to categorize them, how to label them. And with our example of the water sounds, with our example of like the Andes moche culture sounds, they were like very intentionally collecting certain data sets. But it doesn't have to stop there. I think after the data set has been collected, you can even perform with the data sets itself. Like if you have 2 or 3, you can switch the data sets. You can treat one data set as another data set.
Right. I don't know if there are any more questions, but I do have one which I don't know if I asked the previous speaker, but I definitely love asking people. It's like, can you name few more people whose work we can see who've been inspiring you in the last few, I don't know, year, 2 years, like who are really embedded in your practice or your thinking? And then, like maybe for us that will be interesting also to know. Maybe we don't know some people, although sometimes we always know people, but also if you know, you know.
Well, many of the people in India doing amazing things, thanks to all of your hard work, are connected through this community. So even I want to know, maybe I can answer more from like the places I'm situated in right now. And I would say for music, some of the exciting people to look at are Hugo Garcia, who just finished his PhD thesis from Chicago. And one of his works that was very viral was like he was making the sounds with his mouth of like a lion and an F1 car, and it would get converted into the sounds of the actual instruments. He did this work at Adobe. He has been open sourcing a lot of his work. VampNet is his work. Hugo also does amazing artwork where he's live performing with this. Like he had one which was 4 speakers take turns saying the same message to each other and through an AI model. So they slowly get more and more corrupted. It's a rip on Alvin Lucier's piece. I'm sitting in a room where you sit in a room and keep playing the audio back into the speakers. Okay, Hugo is one. Another person, I think I'm very inspired by like Lauren McCarthy and Kyle. I mean, they're doing this performance work that is very reflective of the values of the technology and not the technology itself. Which also maybe some of you are familiar with. And then
and the Vecinator tool, is that still like relevant?
Vecinator is still around. Yeah, Rebecca Feebrink made that a while ago.
Is it still like something people should try out, or like is it now way dated? Like I don't.
Well, the thing is like
Want to because you're on record, but like I just meant like what are some tools people might want to like start exploring, even if they don't want to like jump into the coding bit.
Well, like I have to say, like many of the MediaPipe, JavaScript, everything is like with the language models at your assistance, you shouldn't be afraid of any tool because they can help you guide you through on how to do certain things. But there are some like really easy out of the box kind of ways of using it. So whatever your like creative medium is, you're already used to a certain workflow, right? Like you're using an audio workstation or an image editing tool. And there are plugin versions of those things. And I think now in 2025, we're at a point where many people are kind of making plugin versions of things where you don't have to get into like writing the technology. So for audio, there are so many plugins like Newtone, Lemonade. There are many plugins that allow you to do like AI music within your workflows. And I think there are like many more artists. There is like a collection of people that work on music that is coming out soon, and I think there'll be like a bunch of people that are very exciting that are working on AI and music, like CJ, who is from Dadabots, and Holly Herndon, who's been doing things with voice for the longest time. Hixor Sismos, who's been doing like cultural work from South America. Um, But I think like when you ask like, is Wakinator still relevant? Like my suggestion from making a reference to the instrument slide that I had is that all these instruments are still valid if you don't think of the old instrument as like that's old and it does not have things to say, because you have things to say. And hopefully the things you have to say are reflective of your current concerns and times. And so even if you take Wakinator but point it at AI generated images, or pointed at like security cameras, or whatever is like the more situated in the current time, I don't think it matters that Wakinator is old. Wakinator is a great example because it allows you to make image processing of certain categories of images and very quickly say that whenever this happens in front of the camera, give me message 1, and whenever this happens in front of the camera, and you don't have to define this, you just have to give a bunch of examples. So I think it's still very helpful. I think Google also has like a bunch of such examples for their machine learning ML5JS, where you can run like small AI models very quickly. I also see Koparsi asked, do any of these work offline because of the grid is where it's at? I think he's saying like you want to do art that maybe is reflective of not using the grid. And I'll point to like Ambika's work.
Maybe like just maybe means because sometimes in performances internet doesn't work. Like
Okay. Well, there are many reasons to like be offline. And of course, Strudel has been so amazing. It is JavaScript. It's like a small tool. The Magenta real-time ones are also being built for ARM processors, so they can run on phones very soon. If that happens, then we will not need GPUs to run the inference for them, which means you can run them off a Raspberry Pi, a Jetson Nano, something smaller, a phone. You could do them without being online. Strudel, I mean, I think a couple more artists that now come to mind are like Switch Angel, working with Strudel, has started sharing her like art form. Also contributes to Strudel, actually, is one of the developers of Strudel, a great friend. And also Char Styles, another friend of mine, legendary visual artist, has been doing
Yeah, I
really
think Ted
exciting.
also referred to Char Styles only when we asked him. Yes.
Yeah, Char is a dear friend.
right? I did ask this question last
Yes,
time.
yes. He also said Char Styles. when you
Something
asked.
I'm consistent with.
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks.
Okay. Cool. I think, I mean, we've been quite over time and we don't want to take more of yours, Manaswi. But if you have any last things you want to share, maybe we can use that as a way to sign off. And hopefully we all get to meet soon.
Yeah. I'm very excited for everything you shared, Manaswi, because we collectively, all the Code Drift people, have so much data set of every city. Like if we combine, at least like 20 people have collected recordings of each city we've been to. So we can really do something great with everything that you've shared. So I'm sure everybody's going to be spamming you with questions.
Amazing. I'm very excited for that. Our professor Tor has been doing these like city symphony projects, and I got to do one for the last 2 years where I, across maybe like 15 different countries, set up like a thing for people to collect sounds. And just like what you're describing, I had all these data sets and I didn't know what the next step should be. And the first things I did was collect the same sounds across different data sets, and then like same sounds within data sets, and kind of like do a composition where I had people laughing but in different places, and then similarities across different things, hopping between them. So there are many composition ideas. So that's the exciting part, is if you have any composition experience, or even if you don't, look up a composer, and there are many resources of like their theories, and no theory of a composition is better than another, but they will have some ways of how they structured the construction. Did they start with these objects and then they placed them next to each other? Or did they start with no objects and decided to find meaning in some?
Who's the one who's taken over your brain recently?
It is very hard because most of those composers didn't have the tools we have currently and the affordance of the current tool. So I am definitely was thinking a lot about John Cage, Stockhausen, Xenakis, Pierre Boulez, These are like post World War II composers from
Mhm.
Europe, because after World War II, they were kind of like done with musical notes. And they were like, humans have come up with notes, but that's probably not the best idea. And humans don't have best ideas. So let's look at ideas somewhere else. And if you've heard like John Cage's Silence pieces.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I also recently got like a Geeta Sarabhai tape from NID, which was like the Moog synthesizer that was at NID
Yes.
has these tapes. And I'm finding like these different musical ways of thinking, like modular synthesizers, Moog tapes, have certain attributes which are similar to how we function today, where it's not about a finished piece, but about the process itself, where I'm constantly in like a ephemeral music making process in the modules, right?
Okay, sounds good. Yeah.
But
Thanks.
I think her best ideas definitely come not from music. So if you are not in music, like
Sure.
go some like you look at a textile and think of like why is these patterns repeating, and then just make your musical ideas look at that as a score. There's a lot of work
Yeah.
on graphical scores. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you have seen the VO3. So Google has this thing that can generate videos, right? Like small 5-second videos. I've been generating videos of scores and making them move. And it does a really bad job of it, which means there's a lot of space for interpretation.
Yeah.
So look, if you want to make music, look at things that are not music and look at the structural properties of that music and think of it as a score. That's another maybe.
Brilliant. Yeah.
Good one. Good way to end. So thanks everyone. I'm gonna stop the stream now, and hopefully everyone will slink away from Google Meet as well.
Bye,
For
stream.
your time, Manaswi, that was really nice, amazing. Nanditi, you have any closing remarks?
No. I made my closing remarks. I think Manaswi, if you have something.
Thank you. Meet me in real life and let's make music.
Yeah. Awesome.
Amazing. Thank you.